And so for this one, this combination of the palette fingering weight and the kid silk held together, I will be using, I think, 3mm needles. So I've got 3mm double pointed needles here to make that, and it can of course be done on a circular needle if that's your preferred technique. I'm keeping maybe 8 inches here, 20 centimeters for fastening, and I'm going to start by working a long tail cast on of 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. You could use any cast on you like, really. There's no particular reason to use this one. Then I'm going to position this over 2 double pointed needles so that I can work in the round. So there'll be 2 stitches on each side. I like to work with just 2 double pointed needles when I'm working a really small amount of stitches like this. So for the first round, I want to knit and into the front and the back of each of those stitches. That's 1 in the front and 1 in the back of the same loop, and off the needle, holding both really securely here so they don't fall, because they're also quite slippery needles. 1 in the front and 1 in the back of the next needle. And remove it. And now I've got 4 stitches on there. Hopefully this won't fall off. Let's continue working around. Same again, knitting into the front and back of those remaining stitches. And so now I've got 4 stitches on each needle, a total of 8 stitches. And I find with most yarns, if you pull at this point, it closes up the centre really nicely, so you don't end up having to close the centre yourself. So now I'm just going to knit into each of those stitches, hoping I can see them, that the yarn isn't too fluffy. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Great. And the same the other side. The next round is another increase round, so I'm going to knit 1 and then knit into the front and the back of the second one. Knit 1 and then knit into the front and into the back of the second stitch. Knit 1 and then into the front and into the back of the same stitch. So I've now got 6 on there, so I know I've done that right. Sometimes I forget and increase into all of them and end up with too many. I don't want to do that in this fluffy yarn because I know it will be troublesome to unpick. I'm not going to do the row 4 and 5, which is to repeat the knit 1, knit front and back, knit 1, knit front and back, knit 1, knit front and back all the way around again, because I want to keep this as a smaller size button. So I'm now going to go to the next section, the centre section, which is to knit all the stitches. Now I'm going to work a purl row all around, and that's going to give us this crisp edge to the button where it folds really neatly and doesn't look too puffy. So I'll bring the yarn to the other side for purling. Take care not to end up with a bit of a loop there. You might have to pull it a bit tighter when you do that first purl row. Perhaps even more so if you're working it just on 2 double pointed needles. Now we're going to do a knit row, and then that finishes the centre. As we do this knit row, we'll probably start to see the button trying to fold in on itself along the purl stitches, which is exactly what we want. 1, 2, So we can see the roundness of the button, we can see where it's going to fold nicely along that pearl line there. And now we're going to start the decreases. So I'm going to use a knit two together decrease on alternate stitches. If you have a preferred 2 to 1 stitch decrease, you can work that instead. It's not a directional decrease. So working that on alternate stitches, you can see that we're now back to 4 stitches on that needle. And at this point, you can usually start to see that round shape of the button starting to form, although this one is looking a bit domed at the moment. Work another round on those 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just knit them all. And now we'll make the final decrease round. We're going to skip the repeat because this is a smaller size button. So the final decrease round is to knit 2 together once and twice. And now we're ready to cast off. You can see our button is forming into a nice shape there, kind of round and fluffy looking, exactly as we'd hoped. So this is our cast off round. I often use a crochet hook to do this because I can do it in fewer movements. Let's abandon that needle now. And then we need another nice long tail. That's a good 8 inches, 20 centimetres. And there's our button. So let's decide what's the front. I think this one with the cast on edge. So I'm just going to have a look. Do I need to close off the cast on edge? I don't think I do. It looks beautifully closed. So the cast on edge tends to be a little bit, the cast off edge tends to be a little bit lumpier. So I'm just going to stitch through it. Oh. So that's our knitted button there, which is complete now. And that's really easy just to sew onto anything you want. I have got, it's been my demo piece for all of my sewing on buttons today. So yeah, I'm just going to sew that on there, and you can choose really when you do this if you want to treat it as a shank button and just sew through the little point that comes out there, or if you want to treat it as a traditional button, like the kind that has 2 loops through it, and sew across there. So that's the finished result.